Hello and welcome to Webinar Wednesday that is happening on a Thursday. Hi everybody, I'm Meghla in
Hello.
Singapore and I'm joined by my co-host Margaret in Australia. Hi Margaret.
Hello, Megla. How are you?
I'm doing well. And we have the lovely, super helpful Sameeksha with us
Ah,
today. Hi Sameeksha.
hi Meghla, hi Margaret. How are
Hello,
you
how are
both?
you? We're well. We're not up bright and early like you, though. It's later in the day for us.
No.
Yeah, super
We're
early for you.
good.
So, Samiksha, first
Yeah.
of all, on behalf of everybody in the group, thank you so much for responding to everyone's questions and patiently responding to everyone's emails and giving quotes to everyone. I mean, we have heard nothing but positive feedback from everybody who's used your services. So, yeah, thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome, and thank you so much for the feedback. That always helps. And it's been amazing actually working with everybody in the group because, we've been a part of their journey from the time when they're taken an estimate quote to actually, when they finish production and then their goods get delivered. And then they always do text us back and tell us that it's all live now. So it's good. It's good to see that whole journey and, to see them actually accomplish what they started from scratch. So it's been amazing. But thank you so much for the feedback.
Awesome.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, today what we want to do is we want to talk about shipping, customs, and
Yeah.
demystify everything. And
Yes.
Margaret has lots of questions that she's put together based on feedback that we've been getting from people in the group.
Yeah.
And yeah, guys watching, this is your opportunity to ask Sameeksha any questions that you might have. So whether it's related to shipping by air, freight, customs, anything, now's your chance to ask her those questions. So, Margaret, over to you.
Well, do you want to maybe start, Shameshka? And just for those that don't know exactly what services you offer, do you want to just give us a quick rundown on what you actually, can do for people, and then we'll get into some of the itty-gritty bits of it.
Yes, so I'm a co-owner of this company, Seair Global. We are primarily a logistics solution and a freight forwarding company. We have our offices in India, US, and UK. We move freight door to door, and all services provided are in-house. So, from trucking to customs brokerage here in India, customs brokerage in the at the destination ports, everything is monitored under the same office. So, you always have that trust that you're not dealing with two separate companies, so you don't know what's going on with your cargo. And we, specifically from this group's perspective, we are very well versed with the Amazon processes, what their requirements are in terms of labeling, last mile deliveries, appointment schedules. So that's something that's our USP, and we can assist on how to prepare for an Amazon shipment. And yeah, that's a little bit about us. We're part of a global network, WCA, that gives us access to multiple offices worldwide, so we can move a shipment from anywhere in the world to anywhere. And we've been doing that for a lot of members in this group. We've been moving shipments from all over Southeast Asia. So yeah, we continue to looking forward to working with the wonderful people of this group.
Oh, I think you'll get heaps more, because I think a lot of people don't realise that you can do more than India. Like, people
Yeah.
post, can I go from, to Europe or wherever? So, it
Yes.
is good to know that, they don't need to keep swapping freight forwarders for different destinations if they're, doing,
Yes.
3 different countries or something. So, but look, to get
Correct.
started, I have lots of people who come to me and go, how much is it to ship? And I need to get a quote, and I've gone to Shamisk. Oh, and then I've changed my mind and I've got another quote and another quote. I'm just trying to maybe help you and help the people to understand what they actually need. So to me, they would need a packing list from their supplier to really gain a quote that's fairly much what it's going to end up. I mean, if they're just looking at a product and they think it's going to be, about 6 inches square, and we don't know what it's going to weigh and we don't know where we're sending it yet, to me, they're wasting time, because you've got no idea. And maybe do you want to explain to them why that is, why you need the specific information to give them an accurate quote?
Yes, yes. So that's a very valid point, Mark. So what happens is that's the start point. You need to know the specifications of your cargo. That can change a lot. The dimensions are literally like, without that you can't even think shipping. And sometimes people confuse product dimensions to the carton dimensions, so they end up giving me the dimensions of the product that they're trying to source, which to be honest, is of no concern to us when we are shipping, because ultimately what matters is the box size that you're shipping in. So, that's really the start point: the master carton's weight, the dimensions, and the number of cartons. And to be honest, if you are working with a supplier who's export friendly, this information is not very difficult to get, because they will know what is the optimum way to pack their product and how many master cartons it will fit in, depending on the quantity you're looking at shipping eventually. So yes, that's the start point. A packing list is extremely important, and a packing list will give all the information related to the dimensions. And sometimes the box sizes can be different because they end up taking multiple products from the same supplier, so everything will have a different kind of packaging. So a packing list then lays out all those details as well. So there are 20 cartons of this size and 30 cartons of that size. So that's extremely important, whether you're shipping by air or by sea, to know the dimensions of the carton and the number of cartons you're looking at shipping.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's, I think, what a lot of people just think, that they can just say to you, I want to ship this, and that you've got this, magic wand that can, work out exactly what it's going to be, or and give them an answer. And I know people get frustrated with that, but you can't get an accurate quote without knowing that. So, I mean, if you're thinking about something, there's no point in trying to get a quote in writing, because it's not going to be worth a piece of paper. It could be out a couple of $1,000s by the end of, depending on the size of your shipment, because it's all guesstimate. So the other thing is, you obviously need to know where the shipment is going to end up, whether it's going into an Amazon warehouse, and it can be anywhere really in the USA, or is it going to 3PL? So people really need to do a shipping plan. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
So both things, that's absolutely important. One, where they are shipping from in India can also lead to a major fluctuation in cost. If your factory is located in an inland destination that is not close to the port, it can add to a lot of domestic costing in terms of trucking to the port, or what their terms are with the factory, whether it's FOB, whether it's X works. And I understand sometimes they want to look at both costs to see whether the X work pricing or FOB pricing is working better, which is good. I think it's good to analyze that. But from the destination perspective, absolutely to know which port you want to ship to, because even if you're taking an estimate, the estimate, like you said, can deviate from thousands of dollars if you're shipping to a base port like a New York or Los Angeles, which is a direct vessel, or if you're going to an inland port like Dallas or Chicago, where the vessel will not call directly. Your cargo will be unloaded, it will be put in a custom bonded rail, so there'll be restuffing, and then there'll be on carriage from that port to the inland port, and then the warehouse fees of every terminal is very different. So yes, knowing at least the port where you're going to is important. You can still make the decision of whether you'll go to a 3PL or FBA later if you're not sure about that, because last mile delivery will not fluctuate that much, if it's in the same area. But not knowing the port is not going to ever give you the correct estimate. So yes, I understand when people start, they want to know whether it's even worth their effort, whether shipping, because they do come back and tell us that sometimes shipping is even more than the cost of the actual product. But I think that's another calculation they all need to do in terms of the quantity they want to order. If you go too small, it will always be a problem, and then you have to mentally prepare. Then on that kind of orders, you're not going to get the margins you're expecting, because you're not going to get the economies of scale, and which comes with larger volume. So there has to be a balance between the number of products you order, and then that's when shipping becomes sensible in terms of an expense that you want to make.
Yeah, and look, even, I mean, from just say you decide, because it's India, we tend to go into, actually, do you want to touch on that now, the time difference between going into New York or going into California, because there's quite a time difference in the shipping time, isn't there, between those two?
Yes, so the direct vessel, the good thing about New York is all the sailing is direct. So there is no transit port in between. And I'm talking about Mumbai, New York. So that at least you are assured that there is going to be no delays on the transit port, because right now that's a huge problem all of us are facing. There's major congestion for Los Angeles at either you go through Hong Kong or Colombo. Both the ports are extremely congested. So that's delaying shipments by about 8 to 10 days, even after they sail from India. So Mumbai, New York is direct sailing 22 days. So once it sails, you're sure that your cargo is going to be available in 22 days in New York. Mumbai, Los Angeles is on a direct vessel is 28 days, but the issue is that all services are not direct. So a lot of vessels to Los Angeles is via a transit port, and that sometimes ends up delaying things. But of course, Margaret, we are still living in COVID times. There's even with New York, we have seen so many like just last week there was a ship, and they detected a COVID positive crew member, so they had to isolate the entire ship for 14 days. So the ship was there, but the goods could not be loaded for 14 days. So I mean, of course, those are unusual things, but Nhava Sheva, New York will always be the fastest bet for shipping. For that matter, even Chennai, New York is fast from South India.
So yeah,
Yes.
so just talking about the different ports. So Mumbai is of course the most commonly used port.
Yeah.
But then what about the others? So you mentioned Chennai, and then Kolkata.
Yeah, so the base ports, Meghla, Chennai, and Mumbai, there's something called as master vessels. So these are the main big ships that directly go to New York. They do not need to be connected to another big ship. But out of Tuticorin and Kolkata, there are feeder vessels. So the water bodies are not large enough to be able to accommodate the big ships. So these feeder vessels take containers from Kolkata, and then they go to either Colombo or Hong Kong. And there they connect with a master vessel, which is a bigger ship. So shipments do move out of Kolkata, Tuticorin, there is Bangalore, there's Chennai, but Chennai and Mumbai become like the main ports where you can get direct connections and you don't need to switch to another vessel. And a lot of shipments coming from north of India, if it is LCL cargo, so Moradabad is a big hub. It will come by rail. So you can clear either in Delhi. There is a CFS station in Delhi where you can custom clear, and then the goods straight go to the port, which will again come to Mumbai only. And also a faster alternate, which I suggest to people, is that if you want to ship out of Mumbai and your goods are in North India, truck it to Mumbai. It's faster. The clearances are faster. This port is well equipped with turning around sea freights, and since there are like multiple shipping line options here, you get better transit. So anybody shipping out of Moradabad, I tell them to avoid the clearance in Delhi and shipping via custom bonded rail, because that is then once you hand over to customs, you don't have too much control on when they'll connect it to the rail and when it'll reach Mumbai, and then it'll connect to the next vessel from here. So I instead say that if your shipper is registered, so that's important. The shipper needs to be registered at a particular port for him to be able to custom clear the goods there. But if they are, then it's always best to truck goods to Mumbai instead of clearing it in Delhi.
So I think that's a good point. So we want to ensure that people always get an FOB Mumbai price from their supplier, because a lot of times the supplier will give an FOB Delhi price. But
yes,
they can do clearance there, but then they have less control. Okay, I think that's good.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to just maybe, while we're on this subject, explain what FOB means? Some people don't know how NX works, like just so the new starters who probably have never done any shipping before don't know all these terms. Yeah, DDP, there's 1,000 terms, but the main ones.
Yes. So when you're negotiating with your supplier, they'll either give you a FOB price or Ex Works price. So what happens in an FOB price is it becomes their responsibility till the goods are custom cleared and handed over at the port of discharge. So for example, you negotiate FOB Mumbai, then and your supplier is based in Moradabad, for example, then the expense of getting the goods from Moradabad to Mumbai, to custom clearing it, to handing it over to us to connect to a vessel, and also paying the local terminal charges here in Mumbai and the bill of lading fee. Everything is the responsibility of the shipper. So if they give you a FOB price, of course, they will add that cost in their per piece price that they are giving you, but then they'll be responsible for these things, which is good because what happens is if you the only which I feel flip side with doing X works is that if you do X works, of course you get a the supplier has nothing to do with shipping, but that does not mean they're not responsible for shipping in the sense that they're still the exporter of the goods. So even if it's X works and if we custom clear it, we still need to clear the goods in the exporter's name. It's not going to be anybody else who can ship the goods out of the country. And if they have regular brokers, they have their regular set of documents, like their KYC, their regular things that are needed for clearance. So the process is a little bit faster. When we do it, we of course need to get all the paperwork in place. There's no really shortcut to that. Indian customs requires a certain amount of paperwork which has to be provided, otherwise goods will not clear. So when we do X works, and if it's a supplier we've not worked with before, we will need to incorporate all those paperwork and all that, the time that takes in putting it together. It can still be done, but that's a flip side of X works that you need to keep in mind, that although we are responsible for door-to-door shipping, your exporter is still the one who has to provide all the paperwork needed for shipping, because they are the eventual shippers. And sometimes I'm sorry, is there a noise in the background from me, or are you guys okay? Is everything okay?
It's okay. Yeah.
Everything seems okay. Is it? What do you hear? Because somebody was
No,
saying that.
I
Oh, okay. I think you're speaking too fast. Who? So just one second. Sharon, my volume seems to be very low. Is it okay now? I've increased the input volume. I think it was
Yeah,
for some
you're okay.
reason.
Yeah.
Am I okay now, Mark?
You're a bit echoey because you're not in your normal spot. That's all. You sound different today.
Yeah, Sharon,
yeah.
I'm actually in a co-working space, and it's a very echoey room because there's some construction going on in my building. Okay, go ahead, Sameeksha. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, so I was saying, so FOB is then, since the shipper is responsible for his own custom clearance, he is, it's sometimes a little bit more quicker, because if he's regularly shipping from that port, his broker will have all the paperwork in place already. What happens with X Works is the door-to-door shipping is the responsibility of the buyer. So right from pickup to custom clearance to freight, everything is the buyer's responsibility. And so that's the main costing difference in both Incoterms.
Yeah, no. Now, with Amazon now, I suppose because of COVID, a lot of people are required to put part of their goods into a 3PL and just a small amount into Amazon. Now, split shipments, I believe that it's a lot more expensive to do a split shipment. Or do you feel it's better to put all into a 3PL and then get them to send in your 200 out of your 800? Or do you send 200 and 600? Because they need to be two separate shipments from the port, don't they? You don't split them when they get to New York, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, so when Amazon assigns different FBAs, it's always better to pick a 3PL. And if you are picking a 3PL, and so it also depends for you to look at where the FBAs are assigned. If they're all at the East Coast or in the Midwest, that region, then choose something on the East Coast. It's going to be the cheapest to at least ship it till that point. Why I say that is because there are multiple fixed costs involved in sea shipping. So there'll be a custom entry fee. Now I'm talking about FOB here. So there'll still be a custom entry fee. There'll be a dock fee. There'll be a, if you do not have a continuous bond, then there'll be the single entry bond fee, the ISF filing. So all of that can be done once instead of doing it twice over by taking it as a combined lot. And I've also seen that usually it's not even only 2 different FBAs. Sometimes their shipment is split into 3 or 4 different FBAs. So it's not worth it to do those expenses so many times over. Yeah. So taking the whole lot to a 3PL and having them segregate your freight FBA wise, and then using the Amazon's domestic partner carriers to pick it up from the 3PL address that you give is always, whenever I've done a comparison, which I've done a lot, so people always want to see what it will cost them to take as a combined shipment, and to that they add their 3PL cost. Versus when they take 4 different quotes from me, it's always ended up being more economical to take it as a clubbed shipment. And to answer the second part of your question, Margaret, whether we can split it at the ports, and no, the terminals do not give us the flexibility to split cargo in a custom bonded port area. So it's not like we can take it as one shipment, clear it as one lot, and then split it into 4 and divide it. That has to be done in a 3PL warehouse, and it's not very expensive to go to a 3PL warehouse. Their charges are extremely economical, and they do the labeling, they do the whole segregation, and the 3PLs in US, most of them are very well versed with the Amazon process, so they know the pickup number process, they know how the goods have to be handed over, so it's a fairly simple process to do.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So do we want to take a couple of questions?
Yeah, we might as well go through and see what we've got.
Yeah. So Facebook user, first of all, can you please go to this link over here, streamyard.com/Facebook, and give StreamYard access to your profile so that we can see who you are. Okay, in the meantime, so for non-US residents, is it mandatory to have an EIN? If not, what will be the best alternative?
No, so it is not mandatory to have an EIN. So here there are 2 different things when you're shipping. One is you need to have a consignee on the documents, and if it is an Amazon bound shipment, Amazon will never let you use their EIN. So you need to have a US company with an EIN number and a US based address to act as the consignee. So for a lot of people who do have an EIN but do not have a US physical address, an office in US, they can still not be the consignees on on the documents, because as far as US Customs is concerned, they need to see a US company that the shipment is consigned to. Now, so just an EIN number is not enough. So in those cases, what we do is we consign our US office as the consignee. And then the second part of this is the importer of record. So we do act as consignees for the shipment, but we are not the actual importer. So as far as customs is concerned, they need to know who is actually responsible for importing this into US. And that is something which becomes easier when you have an EIN number, because then your EIN number can be used to clear goods as you being the importer. If you do not have it, then a custom generated importer number needs to be assigned, which is again an application given to the CBP, and we assign an importer number, and that is how goods get cleared. So like I said, it's not mandatory. It's easier for you to be the importer of record if you have an EIN number. If not, a little bit more paperwork will be needed to apply the custom generated importer number.
But then even non-US based companies can apply for an EIN number by phone, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But they cannot be the consignees because they do not have a physical address in US. So there's a shipper, there's a consignee on the documents, and the US Customs requires a US based company with a US tax ID to act as the consignee. So because Amazon doesn't do it, we do it. Seair USA will act as the consignee, but that's of course only for shipments that we are handling, because it's a responsibility. You're putting your paperwork in front of customs, but we never act as the importer of record. That will always be the end user themselves. So that process becomes easier if you have an EIN number. If not, then we generate the importer number for them.
Okay. What about a split shipment to USA and Australia? That would be 2 separate shipments, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Completely 2 different shipments.
That's
Okay.
easier.
Okay, I think we had one more question here. Let me just see. We covered that. Or is there something related to? Okay, here. So when shipping to Chicago, is it best to go through New York? What about other ports like Savannah?
always through New York, because New York is the direct port of call from India. And via New York, Chicago is about 3 days transit. But of course, you need to add the time it will take to open a container, split the freight, then they'll put all the Chicago bound freight together and it will be put on a custom bonded rail. So Chicago is best via New York.
Sameeksha is amazing. I had a chat with her recently, and she was very patient and answered all my questions.
Thank you. I don't know the name, but thank you.
So
can you move shipments from South America? Yeah, let's just take 2 more questions, Mark.
Okay.
So can you move shipments from South America to the US?
Yes, so it's an expensive proposition. Anything going to South America or coming out of South America, freight is expensive, but we can do it.
What about India to Europe? Do you handle that as well?
Yes. In fact, a lot of shipments go to UK, and that's very competitive as well.
Okay, perfect timing. Please tell me about the port of Mundra. What is the availability of LTC shipments from this port?
No, you cannot do LTL from Mundra. So, so Mundra, you will only be able to do FCLs. There is no, so when you ship a shipment less than container load, you need a consolidator service. So basically what they do is they take cargo from all the LTL owners and they put it together in an FCL container and ship it out. So most shipments that go for Amazon are usually LTL, and the co-loaders do not operate out of Mundra. So it will either be Ahmedabad. So, but Ahmedabad is a dry port. There are consolidations that happen there, but then the goods will eventually move to Mumbai. Depending on where your factory is, your best would still be, if it's LTL, to send it to JNPT Nhava Sheva. It's the biggest operation for LCL shipping.
Okay. That was me, Sameeksha. Thank you for answering all my questions.
Hi, Tisha.
Yeah. Oh, so Denise asked the previous question about Port of Mundra. Okay.
Yeah, Mumbai is better.
Okay. Sorry for the newbie question. Is there a major holiday in India similar to CNY, Chinese New Year, that we should be aware of, considering sourcing from India? And are shipments from India affected during that time of the year?
So we are in that time of the year. It's Diwali, but it's nothing like the Chinese New Year. So Chinese New Year is almost a week-long holiday. We don't have that here. Of course, it's celebrated differently in different parts of the country. So depending on where the factory is, the days of the holidays could differ. But I can't imagine anybody being shut more than 2 days. And as far as customs as a central holiday is concerned, it's only going to be one holiday, which this year is, I think, on the 13th of November. But yeah, so this is the major holiday season, but it's not like the Chinese New Year. We'll still, I think everybody should be back in 2 days. That's the max you'll see a delay if you see anybody responding to your questions.
Yeah. Not sure why it's not showing my name and showing Facebook user. Yeah, who are you, Facebook user? The reason it's not showing your name is because you haven't given StreamYard access to your Facebook profile. So go to this URL and then give StreamYard access.
Just on the ports, Sameeksha, are there any other ports that you suggest like people go to other than New York and California? Are there any other popular ports that are sort of easy, accessible, and then work well around the US or not?
So if you have the flexibility, as in if you're not decided where your goods need to go, then I'd say stick to New York and Los Angeles. If you have a 3PL assigned, then please go to the port closest to your FBA, because there's no point doing anything else, even if you're spending extra freight. So for example, if you have Dallas assigned to you as a FBA already, then ship it directly to Dallas, because whatever else you try to do, if it's a direct shipment, if it's one shipping plan, if it is not being split into multiple FBAs, then go straight to your port of discharge, and that's the fastest. It's also going to be the most economical, whichever way you try to work this out. So the port of discharge, Margaret, will always depend on where your goods eventually have to go. So like I said, even for a 3PL, choosing a 3PL is better if you know from the 3PL eventually where the goods are going. Because if you take everything to New York because it's cheaper freight, but eventually your FBAs are closer to the West Coast, then you will be spending so much more in inland transportation in the US. So if you already know that your FBA is going to be in the West Coast, then choose a 3PL that's in Los Angeles or closer in that area, so that then if you're anyway doing that exercise, you might as well save on the inland transportation. So always determining your final destination is important to choose which port you want to ship to.
Okay. And just a couple of little tips that I use, and I think a lot of people do, is if you're trying to go direct into Amazon, which probably not too many people are at the moment because it's so tricky, is we try and use like our 3PL's address, that we have a 3PL in New York anyway. And that way, most of the time we end up getting ABE8 or, even Joliet, something that's not too far away. Whereas if we don't, we could end up with California, Texas, or anywhere. So I mean, it's not guaranteed, and it depends on your product. I think not every product, it might be if you're not in a normal category, if you're doing something a little bit different, or if you're doing oversized. Now, a lot of people don't realise that no matter what you do with oversized goods, Amazon will make you split it into 3 shipments. So I've never ever seen an oversized product go into one 3PL yet. So I think that's something people need to consider when they're starting. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing oversized if you've got the dollars in the product and you can make good money, but there's a lot of added costs you need to consider, because you've either really got to go into a 3PL and add again, which is going to be expensive, obviously, because you're not shipping a little box, you're usually shipping quite a large product. If you've got anything else to suggest with that, that's about the only thing I can think you can do.
Yeah, so the ship from address does make a difference. I have also suggested that to a couple of people. So what happens is people confuse the shipping labels with the Amazon labels. So when they think that they are putting a ship from address from a New York-based address, for example, so I either share the port address with them, because the port terminal goods are eventually shipping from there to, say, an ABE8. They think that if the goods are actually going from India, how will Indian customs clear it if we put in an Amazon label saying that it's actually shipping from New York to New York? So I guide them a lot on the different kinds of labels. So the Amazon labels have nothing to do with Indian customs. Indian customs look at the export labels, and we give complete guidelines to their shipper on how those have to be prepared. So that, I think that is where people tend to get confused when they make their shipping plans. So that's the only thing they can really do. Try and put a ship from address closer to the FBA they are trying to get. And it should work, because I've seen it help a lot of people.
Okay.
Right. So one more question from Sharon. What kinds of products and suppliers are close to Mumbai? I've sourced from Uttar Pradesh, and shipping seems to be more expensive than I expected, probably because it is located so far inland. Shouldn't be that expensive, right, Sameeksha?
Yeah. So, Sharon, shipping can get expensive due to various other factors too. If I don't know what are the quantities that you ordered, but if it was too small an order, like I was talking about in the beginning, then of course everything seems more expensive, because you're picking a very small shipment, putting it on a truck and bringing it to Mumbai, and then all the other fixed expenses here also add up. Again, Uttar Pradesh, it's a big state. So depending on where your factory is, if you're sourcing from a hub like Moradabad, it's not at all expensive to get goods to Mumbai. Sometimes, very strangely, I've seen getting goods from Moradabad to Mumbai works out cheaper than, Moradabad to Delhi, because of the number of trucking services available to get the freight to Mumbai, So it really depends on where the factory is, the quantity that you're ordering. And Yeah, so that I think is a bigger factor than where the factory is, the quantity. So like I was saying in the beginning, I think it's important to make that decision correctly, how much you want to order, so that you break even in terms of when you add your shipping cost to it.
Yeah. And look, do you want to maybe just explain to people all the little costs, the $75 and the $90, all the little bits and pieces that add up? I think a lot of people don't understand, you pay for, this clearance and that clearance, and, as well as the sea shipping isn't always that expensive. It's all the smaller pieces of documentation and little fees that go with it. Can we just run through some of those sort of costs so people understand?
Yes. So with sea shipping, what I'd say is only do it if you have over 150 kgs to 200 kgs worth of shipment, because less than that, I've always seen that air and sea freight will almost be the same, because air freight has lesser amount of fixed cost, but of course the per kg freight rate is more. So sea shipping starts becoming economical, at least if you have about 1 to 1.5 cbm of cargo minimum, which is over 200 kgs at least. About the cost, yes. So, whenever anyone has taken a quote from me, they'll know that I try and detail it out as much as possible, because I understand when I give fixed like okay, it's going to cost you $2,000, they get a little overwhelmed, but why so much? But when I break it up and I show them where the different aspects are, it also helps them to then rethink which part they want to probably cut costs in. So for example, there's a bond which you can consider getting a continuous instead of single. You add volumes, your per CVM rate goes down. So I try and detail those things out when I'm giving a quote. As far as what those costs are, so the standard ones would be, if you're doing FOB, there'll be a freight charge from here to whichever port you're going to. There'll be a DO fee at destination. There'll be a custom entry fee. There will always be a CFS fee. So whichever CFS your container is getting unloaded and stripped and divided into different lots, they'll charge you a fee. So that'll be there. There'll be a bond fee if you're shipping to US, depending on, if you do not have a continuous bond, and if you're going via sea, then there's a single entry customs bond and there's a single entry ISF bond as well. So you need two bonds if you're shipping by sea and if you do not have a continuous bond. And then there's an ISF filing, there's an AMS filing. So there are all these documentation that's required. And then there's, of course, the final trucking charge to whichever port. So these are the most standard ones which you'll see in every shipment. But depending on your product, then that it can change. So if you're doing anything related to food, an FDA processing fee will get added. Again, FDA is a whole different segment altogether. So if you're doing only crockery, for example, things that you're not directly eating, but they're coming in contact with food, then there's only an FDA review that we need to do. So we need to show it to FDA. They need to clear it and say it's okay to get it into US, but it does not go into things like prior notice. So it's actually exporting food items which people are directly going to consume. Then the FDA process is a lot more longer than just a review. So those costs are way more additional than shipping like a crockery or a bar set or anything that just comes in, or a cake stand. These are things that will just come in contact with food, but of course people are not directly consuming them. So that is then a different segment altogether. Then of course, if there's wood, then there are costs like fumigation, and there is LACI certificate, and we need to get it cleared from the LACI department. So that way there are different PGAs which are different for very specific products, but the ones that I listed, you will be there irrespective of whatever you ship. So these are the common ones.
Okay.
So Terry's asking, can some of the acronyms be explained? I think Sameeksha needs to write a book.
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah, but I think maybe Mark, you could do that on one of your Monday musing posts.
Yeah, we might do that. We might go through some of the shipping terms and all those bits and pieces. It might be easier because there's so many to go through.
There's so much. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, you do such a good job. I don't know how you remember all these things to do, Sameeksha. I mean, it's just, it's so involved. It's, quite doing it. Now, just, look, I know from people who I've seen get quotes, like even if you're doing FOB and you're only doing 200 items, normally your supplier will charge an additional like $300 or something on that order, because he can't afford to pay the freight and all the costs on, 200 products that he might only be making, a couple of dollars on. So to me, people have got to be careful when they're doing really, really small shipments, just because of all those extra costs. Just say you had, 200, shoe boxes and they were a kilo each or something, and you were going to ship those, compared to doing the same things, but you had 1,000 of them. The shipping is dramatically cheaper, isn't it? I mean, you've got all those, costs if you do it 5 times or if you do it once. So do you want to just touch the base?
Yeah, so I've also noticed that for 200 or for a very small shipment, like about 50 or 100 pieces, the supplier will not even quote an FOB price, because it takes their competitiveness right away. So for example, I as buyer is going to them and I'm asking for a per piece cost. And if it's a running item, which they don't need to curate, especially for this buyer, which I don't think they'll do for a very small quantity, but so it has to be a running item which is already in their production line. So that may cost, say, for example, $5 for just the product. But when you tell them to add shipping to it, it immediately shoots up to a $9 and a $9.5, because the quantity is so small and they know the impact it will have on the costing. So they will never give you an FOB cost if you go for too small an item, because everybody is aware what shipping can do to the whole costing. So yes, when you're shipping 50 or 100 versus 1,000, there's a huge difference. So all the costs that we spoke about, Margaret, just now, about the fixed ones, like the bond and the DO and the CFS fee. I mean, CFS is not fixed, but it does not change like every kg. It changes every, say, 100 kgs. So, it gives you the advantage. If you're doing 100, you're probably paying, so for example, you're paying $100 as CFS fee or 150, but if you're doing 1,000 pieces, you're only paying $220. So your quantity is increasing that much, but your cost is only increasing by a $60 or $70. So when you do the maths, your per piece or per kg cost always is way lower when your quantities go up, especially with sea shipping. Air shipping is extremely strange right now. It's very, very strange. We've never seen this, but with air freight, because still there are no passenger flights, whether you're shipping 200 kgs or you're shipping 3,000 kgs, they're charging you the same per kg rate right now. The airlines, they're not doing what the usual freight industry used to be pre-COVID, where the more the weight, the per kg rate would go down in air freight, which is not happening right now. But yeah, always better to, that's why I said it's important to arrive at that balance, to order the right quantity, like we spoke about, and we've been emphasizing throughout this thing, that don't go too small on quantity just because you're getting that product really cheap. It will not make sense shipping wise.
And I think too, what I've sort of been trying to get people, because some people want to test a product and don't know for certain if it's going to work, so they only want to order 200. But I think they should then maybe look at what else their supplier makes and maybe do 3 $200 orders, which will work out probably not much more expensive in the shipping process. It'd probably only be, maybe $100 or $200 difference to ship the extra 400 pieces type a thing, and instead of going, just doing a little bit and then also, starting again. Yeah.
Now, I also wanted to add what I've seen a lot of buyers do very smartly, which is again a good thing to do, that they are sourcing from different suppliers, but they are trying to time it in a way that everything gets ready at the same time. So it's not even necessary that you need to place 3 $200 orders with the same supplier. If you want to ship through different suppliers, but time it in a way that it all gets ready together and you can console and ship that together. Of course, it has to go to the same destination in US. Then that's again a good way to save costs. So either ways, either increase the quantity with your supplier, or if you're looking at sourcing from multiple suppliers, try and do it in a way that you can ship it all together. Either of them will help you save costs.
That's really
what if multiple sellers or multiple Amazon sellers want to consolidate their shipments? So let's say I'm sourcing a product from a supplier and Margaret is sourcing a product from another supplier at the same time. Could you possibly consolidate our shipments and send them together to save on costs?
So it is a little bit more complicated, Meghla. Two reasons. One is it is very unlikely that a lot of Amazon suppliers will have the same final destination where the goods will need to go to. If most likely everybody will have their own shipping plans, and the ports where it needs to go to will be different. And it again boils down to the same question that you can't segregate at the port. Then you need to, of course, involve a 3PL and then to it. And the second one is that both you and Margaret will need to be the importers, right? And if you're trying to file the same custom entry, there cannot be two importers of records. So there has to be one person ready in this console to say, okay, I'm willing to take the responsibility to be the importer of record for the whole console. Now, that can happen if people know each other and are willing, because it is a huge responsibility. US Customs can come back at any point and question, what you have imported in the country, especially if there's an FDA involved, or especially if there's something that they see value-wise was not correct. Questions can come at any point. So that's why we don't act as importer of records, because we are not the buyers. We don't know what has the final material that has gone into it, whether it's safe, not safe. So that's the responsibility the buyers need to take for themselves when they are getting on this journey of actually sourcing. So it can be done, but it's not as easy. Like, it will have to be a lot of permutation combinations will have to match for that kind of console to work.
Yeah, and look, so many people come to me and say, look, I've found this product, and how much is my shipping going to be? And I mean, to me, to go and get a quote from someone is just an absolute waste of time at that point, because they don't know what size, like gift box say it's going in, how many are going to go into a carton. I tend to say to people, as a guesstimate, if it's about a shoe box and it weighs under a kilo, allow $2 to $3. Now, look, that's not going to be right. It might be only $1, but it might also be $3.50. But it's a starting point, and I think if you like, people dwell on this, how much it's got to be to the cent. You can't ever cost your Amazon profit to a cent, because I know you've got your shipping and you've got your other little duties, but once you get into Amazon, then you open up Pandora's box and you've got PPC. Now, you can't say I'm only spending $1 on my PPC. I mean, that can blow out to $20 or $30. So I think people are paying too much emphasis on worrying about this 50 cents or $1 on each product in shipping costs. It just, when they're not ready to, to actually ship, once they've decided on their product, they know what it's packaged like, then come and get a quote. But in the meantime, I think, you've just got to take a ballpark sort of figure, because none of other of your, sort of fees moving forward, like you've got your monthly storage at Amazon or your 3PL, there's all these unknown quantities. So you've got to guesstimate all those as well. So I think it's much smarter than getting, 5 or 6 quotes to ship this way and that way. I've changed my mind, I'm not sending that, now I'm doing this. And every time they do that, because they're just spending a lot of time, getting an inaccurate price anyway. So to me, why bother? I don't know, what do you feel on that? Because obviously you're the poor lady who does all these quotes.
Yeah, so like, if they do not have the basic information, like we said right in the beginning about the dimensions and where it's going, I don't even do a quote, because it is, like you said, it's not going to be even a guesstimate figure. It's going to be wrong. I mean, there's no way we'll be able to even give you it could be any random figure, which may not even be remotely close to the final shipping cost. So I understand the need to get the estimates to see if the product is viable or not. And in most cases, like for sea shipping, Mark, that's a good ballpark to take, about $2 to $3 a kg, because if you're shipping over 500 kgs, I don't think it should go over $3 a kg. I mean, it will be really rare unless you're going to a very remote location, from the port, probably to Alabama, which is about 600 miles from the port. Only then I see it going over $3 a kg for a plus 500 kg shipment. But so that's a good ballpark to work with. But I think if you're really that serious about estimates, and if you really do want to know the cost, then I would say do the homework, then get the information. Only then it makes sense, because you will not be able to estimate anything till you are not sure about what the final figures from your side. And of course, I think even to do that, okay, if I order 800, how much will it cost me? If I order 1,000, how much will it cost me? If I do 1,500, even that I feel as an exercise doesn't really help, because eventually how much is it going to make a difference? It's going to, it'll all probably be a difference of 1 CBM. So the only fluctuating cost is the freight. Everything else is fixed. So that the decision has to be made by you on how much you want to ship, and then add the cost once you have the final quantities.
Right. We have one question from Brenda. Would it be a good idea, cheaper, to ship 400 units, each 1.5 pounds, with this dimensions by air? So I guess
no, you're talking about almost 1,200 kgs. It's going to be expensive by air. It's going to be cheaper by sea, as a comparison, if it's 1,200 kgs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't think I haven't got any more questions. I mean, we could probably go on all day, but we could. I think we've covered most. Just trying to help the people out there who are new to shipping, and trying to work out how they're going to go about it all.
Absolutely. So let's start wrapping up. And if anyone has any more questions, any final questions for Sameeksha, post them in the comments now. And this is her email address, sameeksha.s@seaironline.com. Reach out to her if you have any questions or if you want a quote. I think that's about it. Any final words, any last bits of advice, Sameeksha, that you want to give sellers?
I think we've covered most of it, Meghla. Just to sum it all up, try and get as much information as possible from your supplier about your shipment, and that'll help you get a more firmer quote. And the time of shipping also matters. Like right now, freight is extremely expensive out of India, and I also feel cost is not the only factor. I think to also look at things like which port you want to ship from, to determine your transit times, to see which time of the year you're shipping at. Like right now, if you want to ship something out of India, you have to plan really well in advance, because there's so much cargo going on. Shipments are waiting for at least 10 days at the port before they can get connected. So for the buyers that I'm working with regularly, everybody is literally back working 2 weeks in advance, making sure that proper notices are given to us. So take care of other things as well. I think other than costing, those can have an impact. You don't want goods to be ready and then not being able to ship because of these factors. So those are the only couple of things. And then, like Margaret said, we can keep talking about it. There's no end, but some basic things.
Right. So is there an approximate amount per kg for air freight, please? I mean, what's the current range?
So to give you an idea, Delhi, New York right now is still at the $6.5 per kg for a plus 100 kg shipment. If you do less than 100 kgs, then it will be about $8 to $8.50 a kg.
Okay. Is Mumbai the port for Panipat area?
So Panipat you could do from Delhi as well, but Mumbai is definitely the fastest. And when you do Panipat TKD, that's the port in Delhi. So Panipat TKD and Panipat Mumbai trucking, you'll only save about $60 to $70, but it'll be way faster to bring it to Mumbai.
So Jackie, get FOB Mumbai prices from your supplier, not FOB Delhi.
Yeah.
Okay. Gail says, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, this was wonderful. Thank you so much, Sameeksha, for coming on and sharing all of this information.
Yes, that was great.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you. It's always wonderful.
Yeah. And all of you guys watching, so, let us know if there's any other topic that you would like us to cover on these, Wednesday webinars. And if there's another specific guest that you want us to bring on the webinar, let us know as well. And we will try and work on that. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks,
Take care. See you next week. Bye.
Thanks, Sameeksha.
Thank you. Bye.